everyone, this is Pallavi and I'm back with the 28th game of the book Logical Chess Move by Irving Chernev. Now, with this game, we will see an impressive display in the art of utilizing the advantages accruing from game of time in the opening. So, without further ado, let's start. The game was played between Tarrasch and Mieses in Gothenburg in 1920, and the opening played was Scandinavian defense. So, White started with e4, which is controlling the center, making way for the queen and the bishop to come out. If given chance, White will play d4 in the next turn, and this pawn will also control center, occupy the center, and this pawn will be controlling the c5 and e5 square, and the e4 is already controlling the d5 and f5 square. So after e4, now Black played d5. With this very first move, Black tries to uproot White's stake in the center. Black is willing to take some risks for the sake of having the initiative. There is danger in the fact that his queen, in recapturing, will come into the game too soon and be chased around the board by White's minor pieces. White captured e takes d5, simplest, and keeps Black on his toes. The alternatives e5 and knight c3. The alternatives e5 and knight c3 are tame and cause Black no trouble at all. So after e takes d5, now Black played queen takes d5. Black can play knight f6 to avoid taking with the queen, but the continuation d4, knight takes d5, c4, knight f6, knight f3, and then bishop g4, and then bishop e2 leaves White with both a fine pawn center and the better prospects. Now after queen takes d5, now White played knight to c3. The knight develops and gains a tempo by attacking the queen. One of the drawbacks of Black's system of defense is that it subjects his queen to harassment by the minor pieces without her being able to bother them in return. Now after knight c3, Black played queen a5. This move exerting pressure on the diagonal leading to White's king. The beginner likes this give check whenever he or she likes to give this kind of check. So with this, and here it might lead to something like this. If Black plays queen e5 check, then bishop e2, bishop g4, d4, attacking the queen, queen e6, bishop to e3, bishop takes e2, knight g takes e2, and White has three pieces in play with Black's only one. And that one, a badly placed queen. So after queen a5, now White played d4, occupying the center, attacks e5 and c5, and releases the c1 bishop. Black played e5, attacking the center pawn and makes way for the f8 bishop. White played knight f3. Far better than d takes e5, to which Black's reply will be bishop to b4. If White captures d takes e5, then Black can play bishop b4, pinning the knight. By playing knight f3, White threatens knight takes e5 with the development of a piece. After knight f3, Black played bishop b4, intensifying the attack on White's pinned knight. He does not care for e takes d5, which only speeds White's development. E takes d4, I'm sorry. So if Black plays e takes d4, then White can simply capture with the queen or with the knight. So after bishop b4, now White played bishop d2, develops and unpins the knight, and still threatening to capture knight takes e5. Black played bishop g4. He wants pieces to rush out of their corners fighting. So far, Black has violated the conventions governing proper development by these acts. He has brought the queen into play too early. He has moved the same piece twice in the opening. He has developed bishops before knights, he has launched an attack before completing his development. Now after this, white played bishop to e2, developing and unpinning the f3 knight. Again threatening to capture, knight takes e5. Black played e takes d4. Black is practically forced to make this capture, when though it leads to a position in white's favor. But what else can he do? If he protects the pawn by knight c6, then a3 is again embarrassing. For example, knight c6, a3 attacking the bishop, bishop d6, and then pawn to b4. Attacks the queen, queen to b6, and then knight a4, his queen is lost. And after knight c6, a3, if here black captures, bishop takes c3, and then bishop takes c3, attacking the queen, queen d5, and then d takes e5, simply loses a pawn. So e takes d4. After that, white played knight takes d4, discovered attack on the bishop on g4. Now black played queen to e5. Pinning the e2 bishop, attacks the d4 knight. Black rejects bishop takes e2. As the recapture, queen takes e2 check gains another tempo for white, which is giving check to the king. So after queen e5, now white played knight c b5. That's a good move. He protects his d4 knight, attacks the b4 bishop, and threatens by knight takes c7, queen takes c7, and bishop takes g4. So white will be winning a pawn. All this is directed toward bringing about further exchanges which will speed up his development and gain more tempi for him. So after knight c b5, black played bishop takes e2. Black is forced into a series of exchanges which removes all the pieces he has developed from the board. Queen takes e2. The recapture pins black's queen and forces to exchange. Black played bishop takes d2 check. The bishops too must come off, otherwise white wins a pawn after, let's say, queen takes e2 check, then king takes e2, bishop d6, moving back and protecting the pawn as well. Knight takes d6 check, c takes d6, and knight f5, attacking d6 and g7 pawn. So black played bishop takes d2 check, king takes d2. This recapture benefits while in that it brings his king toward the center for the end game and clears away the last obstruction to the development of the rooks. They can now get to the important files in the center. As for the king, he is in no danger once the queens are off the board, and there is no way for black to prevent them coming off. So after king takes d2, now black played queen takes e2 check. Delaying the exchange is dangerous as white threatens to win a rook by knight takes c7. So after queen takes e2, white played king takes e2. White takes with the king, as he does not want to displace the centralized knight, which is on d4. Now black played knight a6 develops and supports the c7 pawn. Rook he1 prevents black from developing his king side. If he tries, let's say black plays knight e7, then king f3 uncovers the pin on the knight and ties the king down to its position, to its protection for the black knight. Now if black replies with knight f6 instead of knight e7, which is refuted by king f3 check, king f8, and black's h8 rook is indefinitely blocked. Now after king f3 check, if the king goes to d8, in that case knight f5 followed by rook a d1 check with good position for white. So after rook h e1, black played long castle. The king flees rather than stay in the center and be harassed by white's rooks. Now white played knight takes a7 check. A startling combination. At first glance, White's capture looks unsound as both his knights will soon be under attack and one of them apparently is doomed. Now Black played king to b8. The king attacks one knight and the rook the other. Now, after king b8, here White played knight a c6 check. Now that's a good move. But what if White plays knight a b5? In that case, c6 and Black wins a piece, while knight db5 and then c6 is similar. So after king b8, White played the good move knight a c6 check, and it's also attacking the rook. Now Black played pawn takes c6, b takes c6. Only option because if king goes to c8, then knight takes d8, White gains an exchange. So b takes c6, now White played knight takes c6, check, king c8, knight takes d8, removing Black's most dangerous piece after his knight is taken. White will be left with two pieces against three, but these two are dynamic rooks with a whole chessboard to roam around in, while of Black's pieces, two are stuck away in the corner and one stands awkwardly on the sides. So after knight takes d8, king takes d8 only option, and then rook a d1 check. The rook grabs the open file with a check and Black must lose a move getting his king out of the line of fire. King e8. If Black had played king to c8, then king f3 idea rook e8 check. Let's say knight f6. In that case, rook to e7. Moving to the 7th rank, attacking the f7 pawn, rook f8. White can either attack on the king side by g4 or start his pawn phalanx on the queen side, rolling by a3 followed by b4. So after rook a d1 check, Black played king to e8. Now White played king d3 check. The king moves toward Black's disorganized queen side where defense will be difficult, and this rook is now giving check to the king. Knight e7. It would seem Black finally develops his king's knight, but then again anything else loses. If Black plays king f8, then king to c4, threatening to checkmate via rook d8. And let's say Black plays g6 and then rook d8 check, king g7, king b5, and White wins the e6 knight. So after king d3 check, if the king goes to d8, then king c4 check, king c8, rook e8 check, king b7, rook d8, and the g8 knight falls. So after king d3 check, Black played knight e7 and then White played king c4. The king gets out of the rook's path and prepares to help his queenside pawns. Now Black played h5, a peculiar way of developing the rook, but how else can it come out of the corner? Black is ready to repel his invasion king b5 by rook h6 and followed by rook b6 check. So after h5, now White played rook d3. Idea, rook de3 and win the pinned knight. Black played knight b8, planning to play knight b to c6 and then support the e7 knight. White played rook de3, attacks the pinned knight. Now Black played knight b c6 supporting it, and then White played b4. Idea, b5 and remove the defender of the e7 knight. Black played f6, providing a new spot for the c6 knight. If White plays b5, then Black can play knight e5 check, intercepting the attack of the rooks. If later the knight is attacked on e5, it can move to g6 to support the e7 knight. So after f6, now White played f4, stops knight e5 and now threatens b5. The position seems lost for black, but Mises not only ingeniously slips out of the pin and its terror, but also manages to set a subtle trap into which anyone might plunge. Black played king f7, a good move. If white tries to win a piece by b5, then knight a5 check, king to b4, knight d5 check, king takes e5, and now rook a8 check and mate. So after king f7, white played a4. White avoids the pitfall and proceeds with a simple strategy governing all endgames. He pushes the passed pawn. Passed pawn must be pushed. Now a4, after that black played rook b8, temporarily stopping the march of the passed pawn, as a5 leads to rook takes b4 check and wins couple of pawns, and b5, if white plays b5 leads to knight a5 check, king c5, and then knight b7 check, king c4, knight a5 check. The king is making no progress. He must either retreat or submit to a perpetual check. Another variation, if after b5 knight a5 check, if your king goes to b4, then knight d5 check, fork, king takes a5, and rook a8 checkmate. So after rook b8, now white had to play c3. Simple and strong. White guards the b pawn and prepares to advance the a pawn. Black played rook to d8. There is no way black could stop a5, so black tries to get counterplay on the open file. White played rook d3, another good move. Black must oppose rooks on the file. Black will either have to exchange rooks or move his rook away, leaving white in full possession of the file. One must fight for control of every bit of territory, whether it is a file or a diagonal or a square. It is often necessary to offer an exchange of pieces to secure possession of an important point or area. A win must be completed in the quickest, most efficient way possible. So after rook d3, black captured rook takes d3, relinquishing the file offers the black rook no future on any other file. So he exchanges the rooks. King takes d3. Now black played king e8. The king rushes to the queen side to head off to the passed pawn. Now white played a5. Every move of this pawn increases black's danger. Keeping it under restraint will tie up his pieces so that he will have no time to think of counterattack. Now black played king to d7. Black king moves closer to the pawn while unpins the knight on e7. White played a6, stopping black from playing king c8. If black plays king c8, then b5. Now black must give up one of his knights. So after a6, black played knight d5. On its way to the queen side, also attacks the f4, lose f1. Now after this, white played rook a1, threatening a7. Black played knight a7. The pawn must be blocked. If black plays knight takes f4 check, king e4 attacks the knight, knight takes g2, and then a7, knight takes a7, rook takes a7, and white has a winning position. So after rook a1, black played knight a7, and now white played g3. White stabilizes king side pawn position before proceeding with affairs on the queen side. c6. Vacates the c7 square for his king and also controls the b5 square to stop the b pawn from advancing. Also supports the d5 knight. Now white played rook to a4. Now that's a good move, protecting the b pawn so that white can get rid of the d5 knight from the strong post in the center by playing c4. Now black played knight b6. Knight does not wait and turns on the rook. Rook a5, lifts and attacks the h pawn. g6, protects the g pawn. Now white played c4, keeping the knight away from the d5 forever. After this, black played knight bc8. Black is running out of good moves. He cannot play king d6 on account of c5 check, it's a double attack. Nor he can solidify the king side position by f5, without letting the white's king break in later by way of e5. So after knight bc8, white played rook a1. White delays any further maneuvers with the queenside pawns and proposes to bring his king and rook to more aggressive positions. The king will move to d4 and then c5, and the rook to the open e file eventually to get into the 6th and 7th rank. Black will then have to fight off the rook's threats against the kingside pawns, as well as to hold back the dangerous pawns advancing on the queen side. So after rook a1, now black played knight d6. Black can do nothing but defend patiently. King d4. Meanwhile, white proceeds to bring his king to c5. Knight dc8. If black plays king c7, ready to reply king c5 with knight e4 check, white forces an entrance by rook e1. And then white can, white after king moves away, white can move the rook to e1 and try to end. So after rook e1, knight king c7, king c5. So here white can play rook e1, threatening a deadly check at e7, and king d7, then king c5, knight dc8 and b5, and white wins by pawn promotion. So after knight dc8, now white played king to c5. Now the king is now ideally placed, and white is for a quick finish by b5 and b6. Now white played, black played king to c7. Certainly not knight to d6. Then rook d1 pains the knight. If black plays knight ac8, then rook takes d6 check, knight takes d6, pawn to a7, unstoppable pawn promotion. King c5. So after king c5, now king c7, and now white played rook e1, preparing for invasion by e8 or e6. And a raid on the kingside pawns. Black played knight b6. Again, if black had played king to d7, controlling the e8 and e6 square, then b5, c takes b5, c takes b5, king c7, and rook e6, and it's winning for white. So after rook e1, now black played knight to b6. Rook e7 check. Finally breaks into enemy camp. Knight d7 check. Blocks the check and also gives check to the white king. If black plays king to b8, then rook b7 check wins the knight. And after rook e7 check, knight d7 check, and now white played rook takes d7 check, and black resigned. A brilliant finish. So after king takes d7, white can play b5, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Let's say the knight goes to c8 and then b6, followed by a7 and pawn promotion. And after c takes b5, if the king goes to c7, then b6 check, king b8, b takes a7 check, king takes a7, king d5. White king will go to the king side and capture all the pawns of black's king side. And king takes a6, king e6. Let's say black plays f5, king f6, king b5, king takes g6, king c5, king takes f5, king d5, king g6, and it's winning. White will simply promote his pawn. So from this game we learned many other basic principles, such as occupy the center with pawns, rapid piece development towards the center. It is a good policy to mobilize the kingside pieces first, since only two of them need to be developed to make castling possible. Develop knights before bishops, castle as early as possible. Try not to bring out your queen early in the opening. Do not move same piece twice in the opening. Do not launch an attack without completing your piece development. So thank you for watching. I hope you like this video as well. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.